Okay, this video is about Aristotle and what did he have to say about persuasive speech. A lot of people learned in school logos, ethos, and pathos. So logos is the logic. We're also going to include here the ethos, the telos, meaning the purpose, and the kairos, the timing. Okay, so logos or logic, and that especially applies to the words themselves. Like if you just read the material, you didn't even know who wrote it. The text of the speech. And in Aristotle's opinion, if you had two men who were both, let's say, aristocrats in Athens with a lot of common ground, the text should be the most important thing. What were the words spoken? The facts and figures, logic, and whatnot. Okay, but in real life, a lot of times we're talking to people with very different backgrounds and whatnot. And a lot of times they're trying to decide, is this speaker, author worth listening to, worth reading? Who is the author? Do they have credibility? Do they have evidence of expertise and experience? And it's good to have someone else introduce the speaker who can sort of vouch for them as being good, that they're authentic and real. It's good if the speaker's likable. They could at least be well groomed, get a haircut, trim their nose hairs or something. And the audience will, gives the benefit of the doubt of the speaker if they seem at least somewhat likable. Like look at JFK versus Nixon. Okay, it helped JFK to be, better dressed, better looking, and all that. Okay, and he actually had a better speech too, and he was better than Nixon. But even if he wasn't, you get the point. Okay, authority and credentials. An appeal to authority. Unfortunately, in my experience, most people are deferential to authority, which you really should not be. You should be polite and respectful, but you shouldn't think that they know what they're doing, because that's how you get hurt. I would say the majority of experts, look at nutrition on the internet. The majority of the nutrition so-called experts are lying to you. A lot of them are ignoramuses, but even amongst the ones who know better, they just lie to you. So I think if you want to maintain optimal health, you should be skeptical. Be skeptical of me. Double check whatever I say. And that's for your own sake, for your own interest, because, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to protect you guys. I feel sorry for you. I see so much poor aging and unnecessary complications and disease, and the vast majority of it's preventable. And I see all kinds of stupid behavior, self-destructive, that people mean well. It's like, for example, if you got cancer and you go for chemo, read the paper yourself. You don't have to just take the oncologist opinion. Look it up. What is the survival at 5 years, at 10 years? Okay, and unless it's real good, then why take the side effects? And what I mean is, it's like that for lots of things. And I'm sorry, but it's almost like, I said one time to my kid, if you don't listen to me, I can't protect you. I tell you what to do. You don't listen to me, you do something stupid. It's your fault. There's nothing I could do. But I can tell you that's the most important thing. Average doctor, they got an IQ of about 120. They go into medicine because they want to help people. They really do. They're really hard workers, but most of them are not thinkers. I can tell you the vast majority of doctors I know, they only learn enough to participate in the job in their field and generate billing codes. They do not read nutrition. They do not read toxicology. They do not read pathophysiology. They only go to conferences in their own field with other doctors in their own field, so they never get a variety of opinions, okay? And I've also told you, they're scared of other fields. I know lots of doctors who talk to me and tell me how smart I am and how I explain their own field to them, but they'll never invite me to speak in front of their own field because that would be embarrassing, okay, to bring this outsider in, okay? They won't do it. I know that's been my experience for decades. And so I tell you that because when you go to a doc, they're going to know drugs and surgery for your field, probably, and probably not much else. And don't get me wrong, drugs and surgery might be the best thing for you, but make sure you've considered the other options before you commit to something that is high risk, and before you attribute to them expertise in something that they don't have. And it's not just doctors, it's any type of so-called expert. All these TV phony experts and stuff. I say this because lots of people are hurt by this, even so. Be skeptical. A smart person is skeptical until proven otherwise. Okay, what is the purpose of the speech? And that's real important to guess what is the purpose of the person speaking or writing, because when you read a scientific paper, if it's industry funded, the paper's always worthless. I mean, I can't even think of a time in my whole life when an industry funded paper was even worth reading. And then what ends up happening is all these clueless people that are kind of newbies to reading on, nutrition literature, they're going to go, oh, well, there's a paper saying nuts are good for you, soy is good for you, and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, go look back at the papers from 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago when there was no money in it, and then you'll get the truth, okay? So you want to try to find a paper with no bias to the extent that that's possible, when there's no money involved, when there's no secondary gain. What is the purpose of the speech? That's important too. Great speeches, it'll have like a Copernican inversion of understanding, something like that. A comedian speaks to entertain the audience. Okay. Um, let's see. What is the pathos? Pathos like come from sympathy, empathy, the feelings, the emotion, and to some extent that's the desire of the audience. And a good speaker really tries to know the audience, understand them, and tries to figure out. First of all, the speaker has to speak about something they're interested in. That way, they'll really learn it well and have expertise in it. But secondarily, they got to find the connection point to what in that same overlaps that the audience really wants to hear. What's useful to them? What's interesting to them? Is I used to prefer speaking to an audience in person because you can look at the audience, you could sense what they want to hear, what they understand or don't understand. But now when you speak to a computer, you really don't know. I mean, you have a sense of who's probably listening, but you don't know. A speaker also should always try to tell the truth because the audience can sense it. I think women are better at sensing than a man. A woman like turns her head or something, looks at you, and you're like, you got to tell her the truth. You just can't not tell her the truth. It's weird, but there's something about that. So that comes off better, and the audience will sense it, and it's a win-win. There has to be some trust, and then there has to be some idea of, like I said earlier in the ethos section of credibility to have the speech go well. I think also, a good speaker will show vulnerability. For example, a lot of old guys, I think, are better speakers than young guys. Young guys are scared. They're insecure. They're chicken shits, and they want to get promoted. They don't want to offend anybody on the promotion ladder. Versus an old guy, what are you going to do? I'm about 60 years old, going to retire soon, I hope. I don't care, that much about what I say. There's certain things I won't tell you because I know a lot of powerful people get pissed off at me. I tell you as much as I can. And I already told you what to do. I told you got to go to the other video channels. You got to go to Rumble. You got to go to BitChute. And you're going to learn a lot of other stuff. There's stuff you will never learn on this channel. I can tell you I've searched a lot of these channels. I've searched lots of blogs. Certain things are only found in certain locations. But I'll do the best I can for you here. Okay, let's see. What else can I teach you here? Let's see. Oh, the way you structure your speech. There's connotations are a big thing. So if a speaker wants to praise something, they'll use this. They could say the same exact overall meaning of words, but if they're connotatively positive, they'll be praiseworthy. Versus if they're connotatively negative, they'll be an insult, even though it seems like they're complimenting the person. And then you can get to things like the Mark Antony speech about Caesar. I come not to praise Caesar, but to bury him. Okay, where he was actually praising Caesar. Things like that. Okay. Stories are a good way to go. Stories help to put the facts into a structured format that tells you how to feel about them, and they're easy to remember. Humor can work well, but you got to be careful with it. Okay, kairos is the sense of timing, and having that sense of timing, what does the audience want here? What is the hot topic of the moment? What carries with it energy transfer? So Aristotle was brilliant. He was Ayn Rand's favorite philosopher. A lot of people think he's the smartest person who ever lived. There's a lot of cool stuff about Aristotle. The one weakness sort of Aristotle is that, we don't have a lot of his primary material. A lot of what we got for him is his students' notes. So they're a little watered down compared to what Aristotle actually said and did. Aristotle also said first a speaker should establish their ethos, their credibility, if you will, and then their pathos, their common ground with the audience. And subsequent to that, then they can kind of go into the logos of their speech. But first of all, there should be some of that. And I think that's pretty typical if you look at like a YouTube interview. First, there'll be some face-to-face communication between the interviewer and the interviewee to establish a little common ground, get a sense of each other, orientate oneself, and then the speaker will show slides. So that all fits for that. So anyways, this is Aristotle's perspective on persuasive speech.